The Lost Art with Andrew Cox podcast. Marine Corps League and Till Valhalla Project Ambassador. Now streaming on all major podcast platforms. Thanks for tuning in to the podcast that's given a voice to our veterans. The Lost Art with Andrew Cox. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art Podcast, that podcast giving a voice to our veterans. I'm your host, Andrew Cox, and today we're having a veteran story. But before we get into the episode, are you enjoying the podcast? And make sure you go to the website. That's thelostart.podbean.com. Go check us out, see what we're all about. If there's any way you can help support us and getting our veteran voices out for all to hear, it would be much appreciated. A big shout out to the Till Valhalla Project out there doing amazing things. If you don't know anything about the Till Valhalla Project, go to their website. That's tillvalhallaproject.com. And for all you Marines out there, there's a place for you once you get out. That's right. It's called the Marine Corps League. They are looking to get their numbers up, just like all veteran service organizations out there. But if you're a if you're a Marine or a FMF sailor, then you can join the Marine Corps League. So go check them out at mcleague.org. Are you a Marine veteran? Are you missing that bond you had on active duty? Then I have a place for you. Join the only congressionally chartered Marine Corps veteran service organization, the Marine Corps League. Get that brother and sisterhood back in your life. Become one of the fewer, the prouder, a Marine Corps League member. All right, we are back. I got my special guest here, Lane Johnson. Lane, how you doing?
Great. How are you?
Oh, I can't complain, man. We get to sit here, have a conversation. It'll be a good time.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Awesome. Well, hey, man, let's start at the beginning. Go back and talk to me about where you grew up and then what drew you into the military.
Okay, yeah, great. I grew up in Piedmont, Oklahoma, a little small town. Still no stoplights in that town. They have like a four-way flashing light, but that's about as exciting as it gets. But grew up there, was very academically inclined and focused on going to college. And I woke up one morning and decided I wasn't being challenged, and I went and told a friend I was going to join the Marines because that was the hardest thing I could think of. And within a few hours, a recruiter showed up at my school, and I didn't ask any questions. I just told him I was ready to go. We signed up.
Oh, wow.
And actually, when they asked me what I wanted to do, I said, "Well, can I make a phone call?" like I was in prison or something. And they're like, "Yeah." And I called and I was like, "Hey, what's your brother do?" And she's like, "Infantry." And I was like, "Infantry? Like, let's do it."
That's
But
great.
do it pretty ignorant, and it was the best decision I ever made.
Very nice. All right. Well, what year was it that you joined?
2004.
Okay. Well, talk me through going to you're going to boot camp. What was that like for you in boot camp?
Okay, yeah. So I went out to San Diego. Obviously, last name Johnson is pretty common. So I was one of five in my platoon during the 13 weeks of boot camp. And so if one of us got in trouble, we all got in trouble. I did pretty well throughout recruit training, but at the same time, the name Johnson got me a lot. And so that that 13 weeks graduated um, right before Christmas, and they sent me home on 30 days of recruiter's assistance, and got to go flaunt my single ribbon to everybody, run around and try to impress people. Um,
Very nice.
yeah.
So, was there anything throughout your boot camp experience other than your name Johnson and being able to be on the quarterdeck a lot? Was there any big lessons learned throughout that time?
Yeah, so actually, one of my drill instructors. So I had three drill instructors that I mainly remember. I think there was another one that came and went. I couldn't tell you what his name is, but my senior drill instructor was um, Staff Sergeant or Staff Sergeant O'Brien. I don't remember what it was. Now I know him as Master Gunnery Sergeant O'Brien after I became an adult in the Marine Corps. But I had a drill instructor, Sergeant Button, and I thought he had the deepest hate for every single one of us. And he was always the hardest on us, always drug us through the mud on everything we did. And it wasn't until like the very end that it was really like we could see how proud he was. And it wasn't hate, it was just a drive to make us as good as possible. And
Mm.
so everything we did that I thought, man, this guy is just trying to kill us, was really just out of love or out of just quality care that he came at us the way he did. And then on the flip side, there was another guy who he cared about the trophies that happened in boot camp, and we did not get that sense of like care, but we learned our own lesson. Everywhere I've gone in the Marine Corps, my experience is that whether it's a good leader or a bad leader, there's lessons to take from that experience. And so just as much as I learned from the great leaders I had in my time in, I learned just as much from the bad leaders that I had. What to do and what not to do are both important lessons.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and good lessons to learn for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so okay, so you at this point you're going to School of Infantry. Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay. Yeah. So after I finished my 30 days on recruiter's assistance, went out, did the School of Infantry there at Camp Pendleton. Um, got to find out that the Reaper was not the biggest hill on Camp Pendleton. I felt like it was the mountain of Southern California. It is not. It's all relative, though, right?
That's
Uh,
right.
so we got there, went through, got to learn, basic rifleman stuff, all the machine gun stuff. Honestly, it was a blast. Like it's every young man's dream to play real world airsoft. And so the chance to go out and learn some of those things and things I never would have experienced, like shooting weapons with night vision goggles and um, lasers on my rifle. Those things blew my mind, and I just remember they were the most exciting things. But every one of those things that was exciting, we had to walk there though. That was the rough. And I remember one night that we, it doesn't rain in California, in Southern California, a whole lot. So when it does, it doesn't, the natural drainage just doesn't exist. And it doesn't just,
Right.
we went to sleep one night knowing it was going to rain. And we woke up and every single one of us had slid down the hill like 10 feet. And it was just awful, and nothing absorbed. It was all just there waiting for us when we woke up.
Yeah, that sounds right.
But those experiences, those waking up in the mud or waking up in the snow, just like you see in Forrest Gump, like I'll lean against you, you lean against me, so we don't sleep with our heads in the mud. Like that stuff, to me, that misery is what built the most camaraderie. And some of those people that I went through those really garbage times were some of my best friends to this day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a good way of putting it. Commisery and being in pain together just brings you closer.
Yeah. I got a lot of close friends after 20 years.
Yeah.
But
Oh man.
there, I actually managed to secure a security forces contract. And so I went from there to Virginia to go do basic security guard school, um, and did my first pistol qualification was as a PFC. The only shotgun qualification I've ever done was in that school. Lots of close quarters combat stuff, and then I thought I was going over to a fast team, and they told me suck it up, enjoy the salmon, and sent me to Washington State. And I spent up in Bangor, Washington, on a naval base.
Very nice.
And as a young grunt, I was itching to get to, Iraq, Afghanistan.
Right.
And what I heard 2 years of wait till you get to the fleet. What you'll see when you get to the fleet, you know. Um,
Yeah, that's got to be tough because at that point, that was, the war was at its highest around that time.
yeah, it was, and it was where it's what we all joined to do. You know,
Hmm.
I got that contract because I thought I was going to go to a fast company. Someone got me good, and I thought I was for sure going to a fast company and going straight over. Um, but it's a hindsight thing. Like I love
Hmm.
my time up there. I got a chance to mature, have some leadership positions, and grow before it came time for me to go to combat for my first time. And so
Right.
those 2 years up there are like indispensable to me. Like I learned so much about what it meant to be a good leader, what it meant to be a Marine. I even managed to learn what not to do. Got JP'd up there, but uh, I had so much fun and learned so much up there about being an adult and being a Marine. It was great.
Yeah, very nice. That's a good place to be up at Washington, though. Other than it rains almost every day up there, doesn't it?
Yeah, but both weeks of summer are beautiful. Uh, and the mountains up there in the winter are a great place to ski. We used to go camping a lot. We could do a weekend trip up to Canada, no problem. It was a good
Wow,
it was a good spot.
very nice. Now, and you spent how 2 years there?
Up to right at 2 years, and then from there they gave me. It was kind of a whirlwind at that point. I had orders to Second Battalion, Fourth Marines at Camp Pendleton, and me and one other Marine checked in at division one morning down there in June of '07, and they said, change of plans, you're going to MP Company. And we're like, okay. And we gave us new orders, and we walked over to MP Company, which happened to be in Camp Marguerite at the time, right there. And walked in.
Yeah.
First sergeant's like, hey, we're going to a briefing right now. And we went to our pre-deployment briefing in our alphas. And it was one of the scariest experiences of my life because I'm sitting in this room, and the guy next to me on one side was a cook, and the other guy was a legal aid, and they pulled up the training plan. It was like M16 familiarization classes, and there were two in the whole room, and I was like, this is not going to work. They said we're going to do route clearance. I'm like, with who? um,
Yeah, that sounds fun.
So we only actually were there a week before they realized we had clearances, and they shipped us up to Fifth Marines.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
so we went up to Fifth Marines, and we went with RCT 5 to Iraq about 5 months later, and we did an 11. I did 11 months. It was a 13-month deployment over in Western Al-Anbar province,
Hmm.
um, OIF, and I only did 11 because during that deployment I hit my 4 years and re-enlisted to become a forward observer. So
Oh, I see.
I actually was there, and then I re-enlisted in. The next thing you know, someone says, "Hey, you have orders. You're supposed to check in at 11th Marines in 3 days." Uh,
And you were still in Iraq?
I'm like, "Yeah," and I was in Iraq. Um,
Wow.
I went like literally. They're like, "Well, go pack your stuff," and I packed my stuff, and the next day flew out, and
That's impressive.
yeah, it was very, but I picked up, because of my NJP, I picked up corporal over there, but I had my hash mark before I had my corporal chevrons.
Oh, nice.
There were lots of people who called me hash mark Johnson, like the old Sergeant Major Johnson, for a long time. But when I was in Iraq, I worked with a lot of forward observers and um, had some great leaders that were with them. Some of them that are just retiring now.
Hmm.
Um, they I looked up to them, and I wanted to be like them. And step one was to get their MLS, and so I went to Came back to 11th Marines, went out to Fort Sill, did the school there, and then moved on to Coronado out in San Diego and finished up the last part of the Naval Gunfire School and then headed back up.
Wow. Now, how long of a school? Because you come here to Oklahoma and then you go back out to California. How long is the schools on each part?
So, if I remember correctly, the Fort Sill portion here in Oklahoma was about 8 weeks. And most of the students that were entry level normally spent longer because they had like a waiting platoon. But I
Mm.
walked in and picked up class the next day. Uh, it was, but it was like coming home because my grandma ran the Field Artillery Association on Fort Sill 20 something years.
Wow.
I was very familiar with the base and Lawton and had
Hmm.
so I went to that school, and that's where you learn the basics of call for fire and fire support. And I did that before moving out to Coronado. And I think that was only about 4 weeks at Coronado
Okay.
to learn the naval gunfire portion.
Now, out of the two, which one is more difficult?
So I would say the naval gunfire portion, but I think that is just because you had just learned one way. You just had one way to drilled into your mind on how it's supposed to be done.
Right.
They tell you like this is the way. This is the way you're going to do business forever. And then they send you to another school that says that's not how you do it. And you don't say rounds. You say salvos. You don't say this is the order you talk to ships. And so
Wow.
I thought it was more difficult, and the trajectory is all different because one is
Hmm.
flat trajectory and one shoots way up in the air, and you have to learn air support there and or
Oh,
close
wow.
support, and you got to pick that stuff up too. So I thought it was the more challenging of the two, um, but I was fortunate to be on my second term, so I wasn't learning acronyms and my job.
Mm.
I understood all.
Right.
So everything else was, and coming from the infantry, fire support wasn't super foreign to me.
Hmm.
We learned about it, but we just didn't apply it to the same level.
Right. Yeah. And then at that point, where did you get orders to?
So at that point, I got orders to First Anglico
Okay.
over there in Las Flores, and that was a dream job to me. It was
Oh,
all
nice.
big boy rules. We were broken down into four person teams. Each team leader was a captain, and then most of the teams were all sergeant crews, and we would go and
Wow.
attach to foreign militaries and do our own thing, and provide foreign air support to foreign countries.
No kidding. Wow.
And so
So,
while I was there, I had so I got there in 2009,
mhm.
2000 got there, and that Christmas is when I believe it was at that point it was 2009. Barack Obama, or I think it was Barack Obama.
I think so.
So the president, whoever it may be at the time, had decided he was going to surge troops in Afghanistan. So I got there in September '09 on like a Thursday. That next Monday we went to the field with some a British unit, and then we did our stuff there. That December came, we got like our pre Christmas leave brief, and the CO basically said, "Hey, if you didn't pay attention to the news last night, we're sending more people to Afghanistan. Go enjoy your Christmas leave. Come back ready to go."
Wow.
And they went from deploying about a squad, like a 13 person size element, over to about 3/4 of the unit going over to Afghanistan. I was fortunate or unfortunate, depending on how you look at it, to because I had just gotten to the unit. They threw me on the next. They pulled the MU team who had just finished workups
Hmm.
on sent to Afghanistan and put me in the cycle for that MEU, which meant I got to go to jump school, I got to go to SEER school, got to get all prepped and ready to go for the MEU. So I had the opportunity to do some pretty awesome things before going on that MEU.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, what was those schools like? Talk through some of that.
So SEER school was um, that's where you kind of learn your limits. You know,
Yeah,
um, it was the most real training environment I've ever been in. You know, it's absolutely full immersion when you are out as trying to evade it, no matter how well you do. And I went to one in Maine in January, and so
Whew.
I was evading on snowshoes and surviving on snowshoes. And if you're trying to
Nice.
run away from someone on snowshoes, you're just making it easier for them to find you because you're creating a giant trail, and it's easier for them to walk after you've already walked on it.
Right.
But
Holy cow.
yeah, so I went and did that, and the everybody gets captured. So I eventually got captured. Um, then went into like the prisoner of war portion of it. That's you know pretty close to full contact. Not as
Right.
what they truly. I mean, they hit you, but it's not to the same extent that the rumors are around
Hmm.
the military. Um, but between the lack of nutrition and the sleep deprivation, it becomes very very real very very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine so.
Yeah. So that was a very good school. I lost 20 pounds in that school, and I came back from that school, and I a week later was in airborne school. Um, so I went like losing 20 pounds into a very physically, well, what I thought was going to be very physically demanding. It was Army physically demanding.
Right.
Other than, the test we took in order to be qualified to go was more difficult than the test that you had to do when you got to school.
Oh, really?
So they didn't want to send anybody there that wasn't going to absolutely pass. So thankfully I was over prepared when I went.
Yeah.
Um, and that school, as cool as it is to go jump out of a plane, was one of my probably my least favorite school I've ever done in the military.
Really? Wow.
It's like 400 people in a class. It's
Oh, yeah.
it's mass education at its worst, and so it's a lot of standing in line and waiting around. You know,
That's horrible.
threw a lot of rocks during that course.
Yeah. Very nice. All right. And then you ended up going on the Mew, correct?
Yep, I went out and
Okay.
did a MEU. We left, hit Hawaii, then Guam, then went and did a bunch of time over. Oh, Hawaii, then Guam, then we went to Sri Lanka. Before Sri Lanka went crazy, did some training with their military. Then East Timor, and did some training with some New Zealand military. Um,
Very cool.
then to Darwin, Australia, got some time off there, and then we went up to the desert and trying to remember what country that. Kuwait.
Okay.
So went up to Kuwait, least favorite country. Uh,
Lot of desert.
a lot of desert. I've been there 7 or 8 different times, and it's always hot.
Yeah.
But spent some time there before heading back, and then had to go into Singapore on the way back and Guam. And actually, that year we got to be in Pearl Harbor on the USS Pearl Harbor for Pearl Harbor Day.
Oh, wow.
So that was pretty cool that year. Lots of um, World War II veterans got to come and tell us some stories, and pretty cool experience.
Yeah. Man,
But
that's got to be really cool.
yeah,
Just to hear them tell those stories, you know?
yeah, it was awesome. I think we learn from those, and we gain appreciation for what we have from hearing what those before us have to
Oh
say.
yeah.
Through. And I think it's kind of hard to understand what they go through once you get into the technology age. That you write letters and that's your only form of communication for
Right.
a year, 2 years. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so we did that, and actually on my way back on that Mew, we got a phone call, and my team uh, was offered the chance to go to Afghanistan 5 months after we got back. So we landed back and immediately went straight into workups. Um, we got back in just before Christmas in December, and then we were back
Mm-hmm.
for in May to go to Afghanistan.
Holy
So
cow.
yeah,
That's a quick turnaround.
it was, and it was frustrating in the beginning of so we got back and off the Mew, and I got to keep my team leader, and I got two new guys, um, and I was very frustrated because the first thing they did is say, "Hey, you guys are going to go learn how to speak Dari for 8 weeks because you're going to be attaching to Afghan units." And I'm like, "Wait,
Oh.
we're going to combat, and you want me to learn how to talk first?" Like, I have a list of training things we need to do before we go, and that is not one of them.
Wow.
Did that, and it saved our lives, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
even though we weren't fluent by any means, the being able to show the effort um, meant that Afghan army unit brought us in like we were family and protected us and took care of us just like they did any other one.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So my 4-man team, we went out to a little patrol base. We were the only Americans on that patrol base, um, attached to an Afghanistan army company, and we spent 6 months out there doing combat operations with them.
Wow.
It was a great experience. Um, I say great experience. Maybe that's overly positive. It was life changing.
There you go.
um, I can glean the positive lessons I learned during that deployment now, but during that time it was rough. It was
Yeah.
it was
Well,
rough.
it had to have been difficult, Yeah, you're working with the Iraqi military. They're not, or was it Afghan? What was it? Yeah, so the Afghan military, you're not used to it, and you're having to learn them like they're having to learn you. I mean, it had to have been challenging.
It was, and the way we approached it is before we went on that deployment, we knew as a 4-man team had to go out and fend for ourselves. Not that we couldn't get the support or nobody would support us, but we were 45 minutes drive or a flight away in a place where you didn't want to drive or fly um, to get extra support. And so we went out to that patrol base with 7 boxes of MREs, and that should have lasted us, a few weeks. And at the end of that 6 months, we still had some of those original MREs because we made ourselves a part of that unit and a part of the Danish unit that came in and the British unit that came in, and everybody took us in.
Wow.
And right, and we went with that mentality of you catch more bees with honey than you did with vinegar. And
Hmm.
treated everybody with respect, and we were kind, and didn't mean we didn't hold people accountable for what they had to do, but
Right.
we can have tact and be respectful in the process. And so we went out there, and if my boots got ruined, it was easier for me to get boots from a Danish military than it was for me
Mm.
to reach back up and get it from them. And we celebrated every Muslim holiday uh, with the Afghan unit, and we were really a part of their team.
Wow. I mean, it's got to be a cool experience to kind of get to experience their culture that closely.
It was, and it's it truly is a beautiful culture, but it's an unfortunate one too. You know,
Hmm.
they've they're a country that's just over and over and over been invaded and um, subjugated for years. I mean, for decades. And so to them, all that stuff was so recent in their mind, and their history is such a, something that happened 20 years ago to them through stories and the verbal history that they received, like it is the same as yesterday. And
Right.
um, it was very cool to learn, how they've processed that stuff over time, and how they see when they see a Danish unit coming, because they're all tall, blonde, and white. They see Russians. It takes a minute for them to differentiate.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can see how that could be confusing for sure.
Yeah. Well, that
Wow.
very cool experience. We did a lot of combat operations. Got to really hone my fire support skills during that, and um, made it out of there one piece.
Yeah. 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 Somebody's looking out for you. That's good.
Like you got it.
Yeah.
So during my first deployment, my first daughter was born. So I was in
Okay.
Iraq. My first daughter was born, and then my daughter was born right before I went on the MEU. My second daughter. So at that point, I was coming off of 3 deployments in 4 years, and coming back to get to know my family. And so I got down on the patrol base, flew back to Camp Leatherneck, ready to head home. And as soon as I got off the helicopter, someone said, "Hey, congratulations on your recruiting orders." And
Oh my God.
I said, "What are you talking about?" And they're like, "You got orders on recruiting." I'm like, "Yeah, right. I'm gonna go talk to Sergeant Major. We'll deal with this right now." And before I saw Sergeant Major to get him to cancel my order, because I already had, my next school seats lined up. My career path was set. And before I saw him, I called my wife, and I was like, "You're not gonna believe what they're trying to do. They're trying to send me on recruiting." And she's like, "Yes," and I'm like, "No." So, needless to say, I never talked to Sergeant Major. I went out and did recruiting duty. So 8 weeks after I got back from Afghanistan, I was in recruiting school,
Oh my God.
and did recruiting school. Was said I want to go to RS Denver, be up in Colorado, up in the mountains, and it came day for us to get orders, and they're like, "You're going to RS Denver." I'm like, "Awesome!" And then they told me RSS Rapid City. I'm like, "Where's that?" And they're like, "South Dakota." I'm like, "Where's that?" And so I didn't realize RS Denver had an office in a state that doesn't actually touch Colorado. Uh,
Wow.
and so me and my family, we sold our house out in San Diego and moved up there. I didn't re-enlist when they told me I was going on recruiting duty. I didn't re-enlist to do a full 36 months out there. I had to have 30, and I had 30, and I was planning on getting out.
Oh
Um,
wow.
and I went up there and did recruiting in Rapid City, South Dakota. I had the northeast corner or northeast third of Wyoming and the western half of South Dakota under my office. I was out there for about 6 months before they made me the commander of that substation, and we rocked it as hard as we could. Ran it, drove until the wheels fell off up there, and got a successful tour out of it.
That's the important part.
Yeah, I made it through it, and so
Yeah.
yeah, it
What
was a lot of
how
lessons.
was recruiting up there in that area? Was it difficult?
It was it was difficult, up there. Um, you have a lot of over in the Wyoming side, you had a ton of people that had no desire. They saw with the coal mines up there that they could graduate high school and within a couple of years be making six figures without ever going to college. And because of the like that mentality, nobody tried to stay out of trouble. So there was a lot of felon
Mm.
people, because they knew that no matter what, they're good. They can do whatever they want. And so we had that issue there. Then the rodeo was real popular up in that part. We did well up there, getting some very, very high quality people. Um, but the biggest challenge up there was just time management. Was
Yeah.
because if someone wanted to join, MEPS was 7 hours away.
Oh
Uh,
my God.
if, if everything's about like your processes and procedures, because otherwise you end up with a lot of wasted time and
Hmm.
wasted efforts. So it was tough. It was challenging. Um, but I learned more up there about communication and time management than I will ever need in my life. It
Yeah.
was some of the greatest people in America live up in South Dakota.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I bet it's pretty up there.
It is. It is beautiful. The Black Hills, the Badlands, and then
Hmm.
Wyoming. It's just beautiful.
Nice. Well, successful tour. That's the important part. And then where'd you end up going from there?
So at the end of recruiting duty, I went back to Camp Pendleton. I was going to go to First Battalion, 11th Marines, be a fires chief there, try to catch up on the schools that I had missed. And I got there, and about a week and a half into me getting there, they said, "Do you want to go to Iraq?" And I said, "Hell no!" Like I just got back off recruiting duty. I'm supposed to have 6 months, and they said, "Okay, we get it. You're good." And a couple of weeks later, they called me and said, "You're going to Iraq." And 3 weeks
Oh my God.
after I got off of recruiting duty, I was in Iraq. So my recruiting tour had an eight-week gap on each side of it between combat tours. Um, and I went out to Iraq and ran the strike cell in Baghdad to fight
Oh
ISIS
wow.
for OIF. So at that point, I had checked all the boxes: OIF, OEF, OIR, did it all.
Yeah. And
So
now
that's
that's four deployments at this
that
point.
fourth, yeah.
Yeah. Holy cow.
So, but that deployment was very cool because as a staff sergeant, my RS was a lieutenant colonel, and
Nice.
my RO was a general. And I had more contact with my RO during that deployment than I'd ever had with an RO before, because he worked in the next room, and I would call
Yeah.
him in the middle of the night and wake him up, say, "Hey, this is what I got. I need your approval," and he'd be like, "Oh, just tell him I approve," you know. Uh, but that was the late General Mullen. He's not with us anymore, but he was
Yeah.
phenomenal leader, um, and it was one of the greatest experiences. That's where like there's the art behind fire support. That's or the science behind it. But that deployment is where I really refined like the art of it,
Yeah.
and got to understand like how I could make effects without blowing someone up. So
Right.
very very good experience.
Hmm. And what would you say that I guess how did you get to that point? Like in a sense of it becoming an art.
So there was a lot of at that point we were doing the full gambit of fire support over there. Fire support isn't just bombs that go boom; it's also the information side, the cyber side
Hmm.
into it. But even for what we were doing, sometimes it was just the psychological warfare of there's bombs going off in the middle of the night. Where are those? Who's being attacked? What's happening?
Right.
The enemy, when really I was just putting bombs in the middle of open fields just to cause the chaos and
Right.
create confusion. And so we really had the ability to uh, exercise, I guess, restrained freedom with what we were wanted to do.
Hmm.
Still had our laws of war and our rules of engagement that we had to follow, but we learned how very quickly how to take those and use those, not I guess not to our advantage, but work within the rules and still
Hmm.
get desired effects. And so that
Yeah.
I think the art came in. So many people see those restrictions as, I can't do my job, but it's really how well you could do your job despite rules that you have to follow.
Right. Yeah. Man, I like that. I like how you brought that up because, the name of the podcast is The Lost Art. And, like, there's so many things that could be a lost art, but the art of fire missions, right? Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I love it.
And then you were out there for how long on that one?
I was out there for 6 months, and
Okay.
I was an individual augment, so I deployed by myself on that one. Like
Oh,
I
wow.
walking around Kuwait in my civilian attire, trying to figure out how do I get into Iraq. It was a mess, but
Wow.
because we weren't sending full units as the Marine Corps at the time. We were just sending
Hmm.
elements or individuals to go fill positions because most
Right.
that was a joint deployment for me, um, which I think of as like a Marine Corps appreciation deployment because we just do things differently. Uh,
Yeah.
and so everybody I worked with was a different branch. There was very few Marines actually out there. We were just,
Wow.
we were just in the leadership positions.
Very cool. But I bet you it was eye-opening.
It was. Yeah, I
Yeah.
got a lot of things I learned, tidbits that I took with me, and um, I think an important lesson I learned during that deployment, like on the leadership front, was that my job as a leader is to lead people where they're at, not where I think they should be. Um,
Mm.
and so that was tough. I always thought like you create this leadership style and it fits every situation. You always see these lists like what's your leadership style? Is it authoritarian? Is it democratic? Like where do you fit? And I think if you try to fit yourself into one of those, then you're gonna go through some tough times.
Yeah.
Some people need you to sit down and explain what's happening. Some people need you to raise your voice so that they
Hmm.
understand it's important. Um, but
That's a good point.
you can treat everybody the same, as in accountability and the
Hmm.
expectations that there are, but how you communicate and lead them could be different at the same time.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then where did you end up going after that deployment?
After that, I came back and I went back to 111. I was the fire support chief for First Marines
Hmm.
for a year. A little bit of a break before I deployed again on a MEU with First Battalion, Third Battalion, First Marines. Went over there with
Okay.
Brahma Nation, did a MEU, hit a lot of the same countries. Got to do some time in Africa during that deployment. Um, and did that one got extended. There was a lot of turmoil, and so
Mm.
that 8 month long MEU. But I had just picked up Gunny right before that, and so I got to train a lot of Marines during that one.
Yeah.
So
And being on a ship, picking up gunny, going on the ship was a little different, right?
the best. It angers you in the beginning. It's like, what do you mean? I go in this room and there's only 4 people in line for food.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, they take care of those chiefs.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I felt bad for a little while. Yeah, but I was on the USS Anchorage in the beginning of that deployment, and I had like a room, almost like a stateroom, but it was made for senior enlisted with that I shared with 3 other Marines, and
Oh,
then
wow.
they cross-decked me to go train some Marines on the Essex, which was not the same. Um, it was a big deck, and everybody got their spot in the sardine can to sleep in,
Yeah.
and did the rest of the deployment over there.
Okay. Well, you got to experience a little bit of it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I got to a little bit of all of it.
Yeah. I
And
like it.
at that point in my career, every single thing I had done was different. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
every unit I went to was a different type. And when I was on that deployment, I talked to my wife and I said, "Hey, do you want to go overseas?" And she said, "Yes." And so on that MEU, I got orders to Japan. And so
Okay.
a couple months after we got back from the MEU, me and my family packed up and moved over to Okinawa.
Very nice.
We spent 4 years over there. I went to Fifth Anglico and
Mm-hmm.
worked with them for um, probably a year and a half until I got promoted to first sergeant. But during that time, got to work with the Korean military, work heavily with
Wow.
the military, um, lived on a Japanese ship for a little while.
Wow.
It was a great experience. Great.
Now, what's the difference living on a Japanese ship and an American ship? Are there any big differences there?
Yeah, the Japanese ship's food is way, way better.
Yeah.
I felt like I was going out to eat every night.
Very nice.
Not the traditional breakfast that you would experience on an
Yeah.
American ship. There's no bacon or sausage,
Mm-hmm.
but they have curry nights uh, and then,
Very nice.
well, lots of fish though. If you don't like fish,
Oh,
it's a tough spot.
yeah, I can see that. Yeah, for sure. Holy cow. Oh man. So and then now you picked up first sergeant while you were in Okie.
Yes. Yep.
Now,
And
were
so
you trying to pick up first sergeant?
I was. So actually, the when I first went to Okinawa, I got there in July, and I expected to get selected that December, November, December.
Mm,
They changed the zones, and it was such a drastic, the change hadn't happened, and for most of the sergeant majors' careers, it always been a very set zone.
hmm.
So I was supposed to be in zone that year, and they changed it, and it was enough of a surprise that my sergeant major said, "Hey, the message came out. Let's sit down and go through your stuff." I'm like, "Sergeant major, I'm not in zone." He's like, "You're reading it wrong. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. I'll show you." And he looked at it, he's like, "Oh my gosh, they changed it." I got a bonus year as a gunny, um, which was good. I love Anglicos and their mission, so I wasn't heartbroken over getting to do that job for another year.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Now, what was it that made you want to do first sergeant?
I love leadership. I love um, spending time with Marines, helping people, teaching, developing people. I think there's a lot of. I was very good at my job and well known for my performance as a fire support chief, but at the same time, um, I felt like I could grow more. It
Mm.
already as a staff sergeant, I had already done most of the billets up through the beginning of master sergeant, and
Oh
so
wow.
I would go and do those same things over and over until I got to be a senior master sergeant, and I wanted to
Right.
do something different.
Okay.
And
Very
so
nice. Well, I'm sure once you picked up first sergeant, it became very different.
it did. I went from Anglico, where it was strictly combat oriented, and that had been my entire career. To I went to an engineer support battalion there in
Okay.
Japan, and we immediately stood up I was the first sergeant for the creation of energy company, which
I don't
is
even know what that is.
it's not a thing anymore, I don't think. Um, but it was taking a bulk fuel company and then
Hmm.
um, the utilities element of an engineer support battalion, so about 280 Marines. And we took the electricians, the water dogs, the bulk fuel, refrigeration, all of them, and put them into
Wow.
one unit. And so we got to, I mean, every day was a new lesson, a new, this doesn't work. We failed at this. We didn't do this right. We didn't think about this. Um, but it was a huge lesson in like change management because it was
Yeah.
changing everything about what these Marines had known was the right way to do things or how it's done. Um, and so it was I did, and they didn't know where that unit belonged either. So we formed that unit inside 9th Engineer Support Battalion, and we were
Mhm.
there and we moved it to Combat Logistics Regiment 3, and we were an independent company under the regiment. So as the first sergeant, my direct line was the regimental sergeant major,
Right.
and I sat adjacent to all the battalion sergeant majors in every meeting because I was responsible for any action my Marines did.
Right. Yeah.
A great experience, working at a little bit higher level. And then we did that, and they said, this is successful. Let's find a permanent home. So then they moved us over to Landing Support Battalion 3. And then that's where I left them, and I separated my ties. But it was a huge learning experience, getting those Marines. And I was used to, it's time to deploy. Everybody grab your bags.
Yeah.
And that is not how they deploy. It's like, all right, where's our heavy equipment operators? We got to get this giant tram and pick up our gear because nobody's going to pick it up.
Yeah.
um, I'm used to whatever I need fits in a bag, and that,
A little different mentality there.
I'm used to, like, if I need to get part of my mission here and part of my mission here, I just run the wire in between. And
Yeah.
they were hoses that sit on the back of 7 tons and unroll from 7 tons to do anything, and it was giant scale.
Right. Yeah.
But
But it's cool to see the difference, right? When you're looking at everything that you learned up to that point and then seeing something brand new like that.
yeah, it was, and one of the things that really stuck out is, because it was a brand new thing, we were it took a while to shift the mentality, but it allowed us the ability to be creative,
Mm.
and think about not how things have been done in different places, but like how it should be done. And so that kind of afforded Marines to learn how to problem solve. So young Marines were figuring out, like, how do I get a water purification setup that can sling load under an aircraft and
Oh,
land and
wow.
creating water within 10 minutes? Like, how do I build out a 7 ton to where it is self-contained, does the mission? All we have to do is pull up, throw some grounding stakes, and make it happen. And so, getting to see them be creative, which isn't what the Marine Corps is known for. It's not known for its creativity and its freedom of thought. Um, but they were afforded that opportunity, and they made the most of it. It was very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. That was a good experience for them. You know,
Yeah. And,
very cool. And then how you were with them for how long?
so I did about 2 years with them. So I did four total years in Japan, and we extended over there for a year because COVID had happened while
Mm.
we were over there, and so we were very limited on our ability to travel the way we had wanted to when we got there. And so as they started to ease up restrictions, and what the rest of the Marine Corps didn't quite realize when COVID was happening is that Okinawa just got locked down for over a year. Like, if you
Oh,
lived
wow.
stationed in mainland Japan, partway through COVID, you could fly back to America and then come back to Japan, because if you tested positive, you just went to your house.
Hmm.
There's no direct flights from America into Okinawa. So if you flew back and tested positive in mainland Japan, you got stuck in a hotel for 2 weeks. And so
Oh, wow.
they just weren't letting people do it. So we
Yeah.
were stuck. Unless it was an absolute emergency, we were stuck out there. But
Wow.
um, the cool part about COVID is, as hard as that is to say, is because they locked down international travel into Japan.
Hmm.
Whenever the cases got low enough, we could go travel some parts of Japan, and we would go to touristy spots in Japan and be the only people there,
Oh,
um,
wow. Yeah, that's cool.
where nobody was at, or go to Disneyland and not have to wait in lines all day. So
Wow.
we did find those little windows to breathe.
Well, that's good. At least there was something to look forward to, right?
Yeah, and then on the back end, we got to do some like Vietnam and Cambodia and stuff like that as a family that
Oh,
we finally got to catch up on some of it.
nice. And you deserve to be caught up with family stuff as much as you were deployed.
Yeah, yeah. So, and we finished our time over there, and then when it came time for us to finish up there, they gave me orders to Miramar, and my family I knew was moving to Oklahoma because of just aging family members here. And
Mm,
I went to Miramar, finished about 9 months out there um, before or no, I guess a little over a year after I got back. I was able to come to Oklahoma and retire. So
okay.
I went to Communication Squadron 38, Marine Wing Communication Squadron 38 um, for my last unit. So I got to hit the air wing. So now I've done the ground combat element, the logistics support element, and the aviation element.
Yeah, hit them all.
Hit them all. Managed to catch it all.
That's nice. Now, now you said you retired out of Miramar?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Now, what was your role? Because there's not a lot of first sergeants with the wing.
No. So that's changing now. Um,
Oh,
yeah. So the Marine Wing Communication Squadron, it actually rates. It rated 3 or 4 first arms, and the same thing with the some of the other units. They were putting them in there. Uh,
no kidding.
I think it's good because it allows the mass arms in the wing that have gotten very proficient at doing retirement ceremonies to focus on taking care of the Marines and developing them in their jobs. And
Yeah,
gives a place for first sergeants that will eventually hit the wing when they're a sergeant major to
right.
where they get to that point.
Yeah, very cool. Wow. And you did just over a year there before you retired.
Yes, yeah, and it
Nice.
was good. I mean, it was quiet. It was uneventful to say that. I mean, probably one of the quietest portions of my career.
Well, that's not a bad thing on the way out.
No, it wasn't. And so they let me do skill bridge at the end, and so I did that for a while, which was good. It's hard to retire as senior enlisted.
Yeah.
To separate yourself from what's going on and focus on what you're about to go do.
Mm-hmm.
Phone calls don't stop and the emails don't stop.
That's a true statement.
Getting to do some skill bridge really helped me to be able to put some effort into getting out.
Nice. Now, and what did you do on Skill Bridge? Did you do it back here in Oklahoma?
I did. I did. I did it remotely with a company called Crew Training International. I did help do technical recruiting for them.
Oh, wow. Okay. Very cool. Now, now that you've been retired for 6 months, what have you been doing?
So now I am a part of well, I'm doing lots of things. So
Okay.
I run a nonprofit called Maverick Mindset, and that was something I was very fortunate when I got out to run into a guy who was like, come to this meeting. And I went, and it's just a men's group that we develop young entrepreneurs and men that are trying to better their lives. We have worked through mindset and networking, and we meet every week with a different topic that we teach formal classes to continue to develop them. And
Very
so
nice.
I took over as the president of that, and then I am working as a part of an apparel company called Live Maverick, and then I'm also in the consulting company Maverick Leadership. So it's a conglomerate of
Okay.
organizations that are together that they've put me down into all of them, and as I'm the COO of the parent company.
Very nice.
So
All right. Now the apparel company, what type of apparel stuff is like military related?
it's lifestyle apparel. So it's all focused
Okay.
on invoking freedom, really.
Mm,
Kind of freedom everywhere. We want
yeah.
people to have clothes that they feel comfortable. If they want to go on an urban adventure, if they want to go climb Mount Everest, we want them to be able to do that. But and understand that freedom isn't the lack of responsibility. It is, aligning your life to where you can manage everything you have going.
Right.
You'll be able to take time and breathe, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Wow.
and
Was
we're about to do our spring, or I guess our summer release here in about a month. No, a month and a half. Our summer,
okay.
we'll get our new t-shirt lines out for the summer. And we'll hopefully this next fall we'll build out the other lines a little more.
Very nice. All right. Well, if I'm somebody that wants to kind of get involved in your organization, what do I do?
So if someone wants to get involved with the organization, they go to livemaverick.com. And as of right now, the Maverick mindset stuff is at livemaverick.com/mindset. And so we have about 5 months of class material of different lessons that have been taught on there. And they can go on and create an account and view the lessons. And we teach everything from classes on networking to creating habits. How do I create positive relationships in my life? The mindset side of things. And really the crux of the organization is that people were coming and saying, I need to hire a coach or a consultant.
Mm-hmm.
And that's thousands of dollars to hire a coach or a consultant per month. And
Right.
what we were finding is that these guys don't need that. They need the basic knowledge that we can provide. I was very fortunate to have great leaders in the Marine Corps that taught me a ton of things and how to be who I am. But not everybody has been fortunate in life to have those things given to them. And so
Yeah.
we create an environment where people at different stages of life, some people, we have owners of companies that are about ready to retire, COOs, COOs in the groups, all the way down to the guy who's, 6 months out from quitting his job and starting his own company.
Right.
You know,
Wow.
and mentor each other and teach. It's created an awesome group of people, and I'm seeing companies, go tenfold on their profits just from learning things about discipline,
Mm-hmm.
or leadership, or communication.
Mm-hmm.
And the goal is that we can teach them that stuff in a free and large group or small group environment, but rather than them paying thousands of dollars for individual coaching.
Right. Yeah.
They can
Which
do that
that's
later on when the money's not a worry anymore, then they can go do that.
yeah, absolutely. Man, that's a great organization, man. I like it. Um, well, is there anything maybe that I missed or whatever as we're doing this that you want to talk about?
No, this was great. You're doing awesome work. I think that this is something that I wish I had as not just when I got out to see how other people got out, but also I think it's a huge lesson for the American people to go see some of these stories. We've become
Absolutely.
very dissociated from the American society and the military are completely two different worlds. It's much different than World War II, Vietnam, where everybody either knew someone was in,
Mm,
family member was in. It's much different now, where some people just have no clue what happens in the military.
yeah, very true. Which is with today's technologies and being able to show people through the internet or whatever, you would think that more people would know what happens, and it's almost like a mystery still.
It is. It is. People ask me all the time, like the weirdest questions. Um, that guy went on recruiting duty. He's like, "Oh, once I save up enough money, I'm gonna join." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Well, it's an all volunteer force, right?" I'm like, "Yes, but we get paid." Like, "Oh, sign me up." Yeah.
That's funny. Well, I mean, he's got a point the way it sounds. if you don't know anything about it.
I was
That's
familiar
pretty wild.
with you get paid.
Yeah, yeah. It's important, you got to get paid. Got to get paid. Well, hey, as we draw down to the end here, I do what I call full auto rapid fire questions.
Okay, hit
You
me.
ready?
Yeah.
All right. What is your proudest military moment?
Proudest military moment. I was in um, the UAE, and I just finished a giant operation where a ton of responsibility that was not mine got dumped on me. I'm the fire support guy, and at the end of the operation, um, the one of the infantry battalion operations officer came up to me and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about becoming a gunner?" Because I basically coordinated the ranges, the air support, everything for the entire MU for 2 weeks. Um, and he came to see if I wanted to become a gunner. And that
Wow.
was a huge compliment, especially since I was I hadn't been in the infantry for 10 years at that point. And the infantry battalion is saying, you should become an infantry chief warrant officer. That was
Wow.
my proudest moments.
Yeah, for those that don't know, gunners, they know everything when it comes to weapon systems and tactics and stuff for all those weapon systems. So that's a huge compliment.
It was a huge compliment.
That's a good deal. All right. Well, on the flip side, what is your most embarrassing military moment?
My most embarrassing military moment. This is an easy one. God. So I had a good buddy of mine. When I was a gunning, he was my major, and I was his senior enlisted advisor. And after we established our relationship, I told him I wanted to be a first sergeant. He's like, "Oh, so you can forget how to read." And he always gave me a hard time. He's like, "Oh, when you quit learning or quit knowing how to read," he always gave me this problem, and it gave me this self fulfilling prophecy in my head about not being able to read. But there was a time where I worked. We had worked all night, and I was doing my job as a gunny, but I was also the acting sergeant major for a few months at the same time, and so I had not slept a single hour the night before, and I was full of energy drinks. And uh, the battalion commander said, "Hey, I need you to go get the award from the S1 because we're going to present it right now." And so I went and got the award. I opened it up, and it's full of errors.
Oh
And
no.
I got to correct this while I'm reading, correct this while I'm reading. And so I'm sleep deprived, hyped up on caffeine. The award is poorly written. And I have my buddy's voice in the back of my head saying, "You can't read, you can't read." And I got up and I butchered that award to the point where I had to say, "I'm sorry." It was one of the most
Oh man.
moments. But after that,
That's
I never had a problem again.
well, you got it out of your system, so that's good.
Yeah. After that, they told me I read too fast.
Oh, I love it. All right, if you could be one military leader for a day, who would that be?
I would go back and be a sergeant.
Yeah?
I loved being a sergeant.
Okay.
Yeah. A sergeant in an infantry unit for one day.
Oh,
I love that job.
yeah. Yeah, it's a good one. I agree.
The influence you have in that at that level, you're not so far separated that they can't see they can't see themselves becoming you.
Mhm.
But you're not so far from the top that you're not involved in the institutional goals.
Mm.
The level of influence you have at that in that position to me is it's a huge responsibility and it's a huge honor. I love that position.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that answer. All right, if you could change one rule in the military, what would it be?
Don't have to shave on the weekends.
It's a good one. Yeah, I can agree with that for sure. All right, what is one skill or lesson you learned that you still use today?
Planning, prior proper planning. Mick Peepee.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, it's a good one that sticks with you.
Yeah.
All right. In the apocalypse, what would be your weapon of choice?
In the apocalypse, what would be my weapon of the choice? Can I pick a squad of Marines?
That's a good one. No one's ever said that, but yeah, that'd be good. I'll accept.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, that was good. All right. What animal best describes your time in the service?
I'd say an octopus. It morphs and changes and squeezes into every spot, and it's always changing.
That was a good answer. I've never heard that one either. That was good.
Good.
Man, I'm getting a lot of firsts today. That's good. All right. These two are going to be real tough for you, so I apologize in advance. Which branch of the military has the sexiest uniforms?
The Marine Corps. Absolutely
Yeah.
down. Nobody. I've never met anybody in the other branches that argued that.
You know what's funny is I had my like I this is because I started these questions fairly recent, but I had my first individual on that was not Marine, and his answer was the Marine Corps.
Very good.
So, yeah. All right, and of course, which branch of service is the best?
The Marine Corps.
Yeah, yeah,
We all do things our things well,
yeah.
but our
You
thing is
know,
chalking off, and we do it well.
I love it. All right, last one. Knowing what you know now, would you do it all over again?
10 times over.
Nice.
Absolutely.
I love it. Well, come time, words of wisdom. Do you have anything for everyone, all the listeners, or anything else that you want to cover?
But be who you are. I see it whenever I've seen leaders and people try to be who they thought people wanted them to be. Doesn't mean you don't do your job. You do your job, but do it genuinely. Because otherwise everybody will see right through it.
Mm, yeah, that's a good one. I like that. Well, Lane, thanks for coming on and doing this. I appreciate it. If there's anything I can do for you in the future, please let me know.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't hang up on me, but I'm going to talk to everybody. For everybody out there, if you're struggling, need help, anything like that, don't forget the VA does have some great resources. You can always dial 988, press option 1. You can always text 838-255, or you can go to veteranscrisisline.net and click on the chat icon. Any of those options will put you in contact with somebody that can help you out. But remember, one veteran life loss is one too many. I care about you. I know Lane cares about you. The whole veteran community cares about you. So please reach out for help. And if you're out there, you're not struggling, reach out to the buddies you served with. Ask them how they're doing, and if they need that helping hand, please give it to them. All right, man. One last time, thanks for joining me. I truly appreciate it. To all the listeners, stay motivated, change your socks.